Hello, welcome to the Social Justice Forum. I am your host, Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. Now, if you're asking the question, what is this show all about? We bring you a forum discussing and providing a deeper understanding of the issues and inequities that many people face, from systemic inequalities to pressing social problems. Our guests will provide multiple perspectives as well as insights, helping us better understand and address these challenges. So we invite you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. And welcome back. As we approach the November 2024 general election, New York City voters are preparing to make decisions on several critical ballot decisions. As we say, Citizens Union, as we speak, I should say, Citizens Union is with us today, and they're a long-standing advocate for transparency and accountability in local government, and they've reviewed these proposals and have provided clear recommendations to voters through this important process. We're pleased to be joined by the Director of Public Policy at the Citizens Union, Ben Weinberg. And Ben, thank you for joining us. And as we look at these proposals that are out there, these amendments, a lot's on the table for across the board.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Most voters think about voting for candidates this year, whether it's for the U.S. president, senator, or their local assembly member. But we do have 6 questions on the ballot. These are important questions. These are questions that will impact how our government is structured and how our kind of day-to-day lives are managed. So it is crucial for voters to remember to flip their ballots and to really think through those questions and whether they support or oppose them.
I'll ask the question that many people want to know. Is there something called amendment awareness? Because we know that so many people are just going to be so quick to go through that ballot after they hit the presidential and they're in the major local races that they're interested in. Sometimes that amendment doesn't even get touched.
It's one of the biggest challenges. People are not aware of those amendments. They are not aware of the fact that there are other questions on the ballot. And when they do reach the voting booth, they might not really understand what these questions mean. I mean, some of these questions you might see, they are very short. They're 30 words more or less, and they don't always explain exactly what the amendment will include. So it's a challenge for, I think, us civic advocates, for the media, and for everyone to try to get through the noise, get through the presidential race, media hustle and bustle, and try to educate voters about the importance of these questions.
Yeah, I know when I have conversations, and we've done interviews before at polling places, and we've asked people sometimes, did you touch the amendment? And you'll also see by the results that sometimes the amendment is, not touched, or they saw it, or they're not really sure. And that just begs the question about, when someone's not sure, whether or not they're just voting just for the sake of saying, it sounds good, without knowing it. So I want to take the time, that we have here, break down a few of these amendments, because Citizens Union has come up with a position on these, and just want to get your perspective as to how you reached the decision on a couple of these things. And number one, let's talk about the amendment to protect against unequal treatment. That's going to be amendment number 1. And so Citizens Union has recommended a yes on this proposal. Tell us a little bit about the amendment and why you feel like yes is the right answer.
Of course. Thank you for the question. I'll first mention we're a nonpartisan organization. We've been around for over a century, really thinking about good government and good policies and good governance in New York City. So we take very seriously our kind of what we see our job or our calling as advising the public about these questions, and we have done so throughout the last century. This specific question involved what protections will the New York State Constitution have against discrimination, and what protections for individuals will the state constitution have. So currently what we have in our state Bill of Rights, we have protections on the basis of race, creed, religion, and color. So we don't have there anything related to sex or gender or disability or age or a whole host of other protections. And a crucial thing that is not in the Constitution today is the protections of the right to have an abortion, the right to choose, the right to for reproductive health care. What this amendment, proposed amendment, will do is that it will insert these protections to our state constitution. Now, I should say these things are already in our state law. In New York State, you are protected from discrimination based on all the categories I've said, whether it's sex or gender orientation or national origin. And you also have a right to have an abortion, and that is protected in state law. But as we've seen in the last years, political winds change, governments change, even apparently court cases and decades of court precedents can change, as we've seen with the Supreme Court and the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So what this will do is this will enshrine these rights in our state constitution, and that will make it harder to roll back those rights in the future if anything does change in New York State.
Yeah. Let's take a look at another amendment, proposals 2 to 6. And these are the amendments that are actually going to go to the New York City Charter, the proposed amendments to the New York City Charter. And Citizen Union, from my understanding, says they're recommending a no on this.
That's right. We are recommending a no on questions 2 to 6. So these are the result of the work of what's called the Charter Revision Commission. These are proposals to amend our city's constitution. To amend our city's constitution, the city charter, we sometimes mayors establish a commission that looks into our whole charter, the whole city constitution, and thinks what are the best ways to improve it. Now, these commissions are kind of like a blue ribbon commissions. The benefit of them is that they take time, they go through the process, they really think things thoroughly. They seek public input. They speak with experts, with just everyday New Yorkers, with legal experts. They have public hearings. It takes a while. The concerning thing about these questions is that the commission that created them did not go through this kind of proper, regular process of a charter revision commission. It existed for less than 2 months during the summer, during the primary election system. There wasn't much time for public hearings. There wasn't much time for public input. There wasn't much time for research and really look at these issues thoroughly. As I mentioned, we have experience with the Charter Revision Commissions. Just to give you a sense, the last one in 2021 took about 9 months. The one before that took over a year to complete its work. And this one was announced only 2 months before the deadline to come up with amendments and questions. So in our view, this is not the way to really go through a process of amending our constitution, our city's constitution. And we think this flawed process should be rejected. And this flawed process also created some flawed questions, which we can discuss.
Yeah. And so of this, what's the major concern here when you look at proposals 2 through 6 and these revisions to the Charter Revision Commission? The main concern on the part of Citizens Union is what?
So, our main concern is that they were drafted pretty hastily. The commission that created them was created in rush. It was, some would say, politically motivated as well. There was not much reason to establish this commission, and certainly not in this timeline. So our main concern is that the proposals that are now on the ballot are a result of this rush, hasty, kind of unserious process to amend our city constitution. Now, some of these questions are also negative on themselves, on the merits. Like, for example, I don't know if you want to go into these issues, but question 4 deals with how public safety bills are legislated. Has major issues in it, but even some of the other questions that might look good on paper, didn't really go through the proper process of really verifying and scrutinizing them. They should go through a process where people do have the ability to give feedback. Experts can take a look at them. We see the research behind these bills and proposals.
Ben, you did talk about public safety. I do want you to talk about that here. When you look at that public safety situation, let's unpack that for our viewers.
Sure. So one of the questions that will be on the ballot, that's question number 4, deals with how to pass bills related to public safety. So What that proposed charter amendment would do is that it would say that every time the city council votes on a bill related to public safety of the police department, the fire department, and the Department of Correction, the mayor and the commissioner in charge of that agency will receive more time and more notice before that vote and will have the ability to call their own public hearing. Now, we have some issues with that proposal. First, we think the way that legislation works, the way that our government works, is that it's the city council, it's the legislative body that is supposed to draft laws and pass laws. The executive, the mayor, does have a role in this. They can veto a bill. That's how it works. But the mayor and the agencies should not really have a role in the legislative process. We think that's really a disruption to our separation of powers. Now, specifically on public safety, we looked into whether public safety bills do require more time, do require more opportunities for public input. We actually looked at all the laws that the council has passed in the last 10 years. That's over 1,700 laws. And we saw that the time that is given to bills that relate to public safety it's the same time, more or less, as bills related to other issues. So we don't really see a reason why those bills related to public safety should be given preferential treatment. Why are we creating this system of two-tier system within our legislative process that will give the agencies that deal with public safety or the stakeholders around public safety more opportunities to comment on bills than, let's say, housing or environment or advocates related to labor rights?
So for yourself, I mean, obviously we know how Citizens Union recommends a no vote on proposals 2 through 6, but I do want to take time and also talk about proposal number 3, and that is the additional estimates of the cost of proposed laws and updates to budget lines. And so how do you see this playing out here?
So yeah, a great question. So proposal 3, what it would do, I should say, today, before every bill is passed, the city council, which passes the bill, must issue a statement that assesses the cost of that bill, of that future law. So that helps the public and the council and everyone prepare and have a better sense of whether the proposal is worth the money that it might require the government to spend. Now, that's how things currently work. The council publishes that cost assessment. This proposal would say that the mayor's budget office should also publish its own assessment of the cost of bills, and the mayor would also get some notice. And this is another case where we see a possible intrusion of the executive into the task of the legislature. It is the work of the city council and lawmakers to collect the information needed to draft bills, to collect the information on costs and the cost analysis of bills in order to decide whether they want to pass a bill or not. We see this as a potential intrusion into the task of legislation. You mentioned some budget deadlines. This proposal also moves some budget deadlines, which are it's a reasonable proposal. But again, you could do this through a more thorough process. The council can pass a law to move these budget deadlines. You don't really need to go through this whole commission process, which, as I mentioned, was done in haste.
And so as we look in New York City, for more particularly, let's talk about this for a moment, because I do want to talk about the powers, right? The powers that be. Because when we talk about these amendments, some of this flows from the powers that be. And there's the legislative and then there's executive powers in New York City. How do we get to a place of really balancing both those legislative and executive powers?
It's a great question. I think one of the things that we have seen in the last year is that the two powers, the two sides, are fighting all the time, right? So the Mayor Adams, and the city council that is also led by Speaker Adams, right? Adrian Adams and Eric Adams on both sides, are really at it for a while now, fighting over a whole host of issues, and specifically public safety and their approach to public safety. Now, part of it is just that's there's healthy tension between these two sides. There's the side that passes laws and tells the administration what to do, and there's a side that actually does that and implements these laws. And in New York City, we do have what's called a strong mayoral system. So the mayor has the almost full control over city government, and a lot of control over the budget as well. But what we do see in the last year is that there's a power struggle between these two sides. Part of that played out through the charter amendments, through these attempts to curtail the power of the other side. The city council, you might remember, a few months ago passed a law that required many commissioners to be approved by the city council itself. Today, the mayor has the ability to approve almost all commissioners himself or herself. And that law to change the way that commissioners are appointed did not pass because the mayor appointed his own this charter commission that we were speaking of. So all this is to say that we're in the situation where these two sides keep going back and forth and fighting over who has power, and are trying to curtail the power of the other side. This isn't healthy. This isn't how we should work, and we definitely would hope that the two sides focus more on governing than on trying to fight each other.
Yeah. And as we look at the city council and we see the work that's going on there, city council, the mayor obviously have to have that relationship in order to get the job done. Some of these amendments that we talked about, these things that we talked about prior, a lot of it's going to, beat between these two groups, city council and then also the mayor, and then it fleshes itself out to New Yorkers. If there is a no vote and we see a no on these amendments, how do we see things playing out in the balance of power there? Where do we go from here?
It's a great question. So if there's a no vote on questions 2 to 6, it won't have a huge impact on our lives, since nothing will change. These proposals want to change something, and so that change will be stopped. But I imagine this will impact the politics of it. These are perceived as questions that were put forward by Mayor Adams and are kind of his initiative to, again, as part of this fight with the city council. If these questions are defeated by the voters, it will probably indicate, or at least will be perceived as a win by the city council, a win for the city council. City council is actively advocating against these questions, and I think the result of these questions will probably be interpreted as a win if it passes, a win for the city council, and if it is rejected, a win for the city council. If it passes, the mayor will probably tout it as kind of an indication for maybe a revised mandate, maybe support from voters.
Are you optimistic that a lot of people will really pay attention to the amendments and the things that really are, because these things are critical. I mean, in addition to voting for the person, knowing about these amendments and the things that these amendments are calling for, very critical for New Yorkers. Are you optimistic that with this presidential election, more people coming to the polls, that you will see more people actually take an affirmative voice? And when I say an affirmative voice, I mean a voice by just voting and going there and casting their thoughts on the amendments.
I am, and the reason is that we have the higher turnout in presidential elections, in these even-numbered years presidential elections. So we know we'll have the most amount of people in the polls starting from the October 26th. And when people go to the polls, that you're right, and we've said some of them go there without really knowing that there will be bad questions, but a whole lot of them prepare and read about bad questions and see shows like this and talk to their friends. So I do think that this will receive higher turnout, and there might be more voter knowledge on these questions than if it would have been in a different year when turnout is much lower, awareness is much lower, and people really don't think about electoral politics.
Yeah. And so for people who want to find out more information, I know we're getting down to the wire here, amendments, all these other things. How do they go about getting that information so they can make an informed decision?
So you can go to our website, citizensunion.org, and you'll find our complete guide on these amendments and our recommendations. And you can also go to NYC Votes. That's the website of the New York City Campaign Finance Board, and the voter guide that all voters get to their homes. You can find a digital version of that at NYC Votes.
You know, everybody builds up towards the election, and after the election, it's like almost like everybody, gets quiet and people go back to where they go. But for you, the work does always continues year round. Talk to me just real quick before we go about what's going to happen after the election and the focus.
Well, hopefully we'll have a safe election, and that will. I think there's a lot of fears about how this election will play out. But you're right. Our work continues. I talked a bit about the kind of the flaws that we have identified in how charters are revised and kind of revising our city's constitution. So we are definitely going to work at the state level in Albany to try to change that, to make sure that state law as it is now does not allow for this kind of political fights and gamesmanship over our city constitution.
Yeah, it's very important. And for people who want more information about Citizens Union, tell them again how to get there.
Citizensunion.org, or go to our social media accounts and please vote.
Yeah. And Ben, I want to get your thought, and before I got to let you go after this one here, but I want to get your thought about the climate, right? I think it's been a pretty polarizing climate, a pretty divisive climate. How hard has that made the work that you've had to do, given the fact that we understand that there's all of these barriers out there that are I'm not going to say unprecedented, but they're pretty heightened and they're pretty challenging?
It's an excellent question. We are, again, an organization of over a century. We've been around since the late 19th century, and we've always supported a strong democracy. We've always supported the right to vote, making it easier to vote. Some of these issues we have seen in recent years. These are issues that used to be part of the consensus, and we had agreement on both sides. We had agreement with all candidates and parties. Unfortunately, some of these issues, especially around democracy, about the peaceful transfer of powers, about counting all votes and making it easier to vote, they have been politicized, and have become more contentious than in the past. And we do fear what will happen with this upcoming election. There are concerns that some of the tenets regarding rule of law and democracy that we've considered as sacred and thought that are part of the kind of political and cultural norms might be fading away, or at least might be not followed by some parts of our political system. So I think it's up to us to make sure that we kind of stand strong on the tenets and principles of democracy, of rule of law, and of the peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah. It's peaceful transfer of power is going to be a huge topic of discussion, and no matter which way it goes. Are you concerned at all when it comes to New York City? We got a mayoral election that will be coming up soon too. A lot that's on the table. With our current mayor. Tell me just the thoughts of Citizens Union and how you're approaching really the work, given the fact that you've got all this stuff going on around the circling, City Hall.
I think there are two elements to this. One is that because the mayor is under indictment, because so many people that are close to him and top officials have resigned or might resign or might see indictments as well, there is a concern that the city won't be governed, or that it will be at least very challenging to govern the city, to govern this huge beast that is City Hall with its, thousands and thousands of workers, and that key major policy initiatives won't be moved forward. A separate concern are the things that we saw in the indictment itself of Mayor Adams and what has been exposed there, which, if they are true, and we do not know, they do present or signify a pretty, I would say, deep betrayal in the trust of New Yorkers, especially around raising, violating campaign finance law, bribery, and a whole host of ethical misconduct. So these are concerning and certainly things that we have to continue to look at. And what the next year, what we have in store next year, we don't know. And I think we have to take it a week by week at this point and be really vigilant on making sure that our government works and operates as cleanly as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot to really, pay attention to. But you bring up a good point about policy. You have a mayor that's under indictment. Obviously, you need time to talk to your lawyers, and legal, and this, that, and third, and go to court, this, that, and third. I think what's on the heart and minds of a lot of people is how much policy is going to be enacted and/or affected through this indictment. And so far, with all that we've seen. Can you give your assessment as to what you've been able to see? I mean, has policy been on the halt?
It's hard to tell now because this is still rather new. The indictment came out a few weeks ago, and we have seen this series of resignations of top officials. Now, the trash will be picked up, and teachers will continue to teach. So city government will continue to operate, but one example is the mayor's main housing initiative, which is called City of Yes. It's planned by the Department of Planning. That is moving forward. That has this. It's in this rare situation where it has support or potential support from various sides of the political spectrum. The progressive side, business groups, housing advocates, council, and the mayor. So here's an example of one major policy that can still move forward. Hopefully it will. But other big changes, other big reforms, we don't really know. We're heading into an election year. An election year is always a kind of, unstable period. And, the mayor is politically weaker than before. And that could impact the I would say, ability of him to receive collaboration from not only the city council but other stakeholders, or to even recruit top personnel to important officials, or important positions.
Yeah. Ben Weinberg, we got to leave it there, but thank you, my friend, for taking the time and talking with us, the great work that's going on. He's the Director of Public Policy at Citizens Union, breaking down some of these amendments and all that is going on across NYC, and a lot to talk about. And we'll have to have you back so that we can continue this conversation.
Please do. Thank you so much.
All righty. We are taking a quick break, and guess what? We'll be back with more right after this.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with BronxNet community media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At BronxNet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated BronxNet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with BronxNet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
And welcome back. Across the United States, there's been an unprecedented rise in entrepreneurship, with over 19 million new business applications filed in the past 4 years. This growth has been especially significant among people of color, with black business ownership doubling and Latino owned businesses growing at historic rates. The Small Business Administration has become a cornerstone in supporting underserved communities, ensuring that business ownership is attainable for everyone regardless of background. And joining me now to tell us more is the Regional Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration, Marlene Cintron. And Marlene, glad to have you.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Glad to have you. Yes, well, we're glad to have this conversation because when we talk about small business, of course, it is the lifeblood of America. We know that without small business, we'd be in a lot of in a lot of trouble. So, talk to us really about this. I said in the open that it's seen a rise over the course of the last 4 years. A lot of people attributed this to COVID and being indoors and reinventing yourself.
I agree. Fact of the matter is that basically we had about 2 years to really think about where we were and where we wanted to go. We had an opportunity to actually stand down emotionally and say, okay, what has my life been like, and what do I want it to look like when we reopen? And a lot of people realized that they were just running to run. They had a job to work, but were not necessarily really feeling and working their passion. And so it gave them an opportunity to, not only to acknowledge that they weren't happy where they were, but more importantly, to figure out what passions they had. What were the kind of things that, they're really passionate about and they could make money out of. And as a result, although we had already seen an increase, especially with women coming into the marketplace and creating their own small businesses, fact of the matter is that much younger individuals started joining us. And so it was called, that whole period of time is called the Great Resign. We have never seen anything like it. It's unprecedented. But in the end, America wins because we need so much more here, manufactured here, thought out here, worked out here by people that we know and trust and love, and create more jobs here in the nation. Because fact of the matter is that if your neighbors are working, then things are better in your community. If your mom and dad are working, then you're going to do better in school because you're not worried about them. You've got more money, more food in your belly, and as a result, you do better in school. And so it's a win-win-win-win-win. And you also become a great example for other people in the community to realize that you started a small business, which then probably became a big business. And as a result, kids want to grow up and be just like you.
Yeah. And when we look at small business, the funding component, we've talked about how a lot more people are applying for small business, and at the same time also funding. And we talk about the funding status. Give us a little bit of a rundown for you as to what it's been like, what you've seen, particularly in communities of color.
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit and just say that nationally, there are over 5 million small businesses in the nation, and they employ about 3 million other people in those businesses. So certainly, it is a great way to earn the money, and just as importantly, to be able to hire people within your community and outside of your community. Within the African American community, 161,031 small businesses are owned by African Americans, and they account for $183.3 billion in annual sales. And for the women, I just want you to know that out of this number, in terms of African Americans, 39% of those African American businesses are owned by women. So certainly they are an integral part of what's happening nationally, but certainly access to capital has always been a big challenge for communities of color. So as a result, the Biden-Harris administration really and truly encouraged us to really and truly focus these last 4 years in the historically underserved communities. So that is African American, Asian, Hispanic businesses, certainly LGBTQ as well. All those groups that have been ignored and should not be. And so that's what we have done. And while we have grown exponentially in the double digits, there's still a lot of growth that we can do. And so that people understand what SBA does, we don't lend directly. What we do is we let the banks know that if there are people that they are thinking about financing, especially in the historically underserved communities, but they are not comfortable with lending to them or lending as much to them, what we will do, SBA, is that we guarantee whatever it is that they're lending to these small businesses, we will guarantee anywhere between 75 and 80% of the amount that they lend out to the small company. So if anything happens, we will cover up to 80% of the loan. And that's pretty extraordinary because what we do when we're in the game is that then as a result, the small business only has to put in 10% of their own capital in order to borrow versus the traditional 20%.
Yeah.
So the risk to the banks and the financial institutions is really, really small.
And Latino-owned businesses, they've seen a surge as well in terms of access to funding, and that number continues to rise.
Well, I'll tell you, the interesting thing about the Latino community is that um, they are the lion that has yet to roar. We found out through a very large national report last week, actually last year, that if you were to take all of the Latino owned businesses nationally and made them a country, they would come in fifth place in terms of the amount of funds that are generated globally. So they're ahead of France, they're ahead of India, and so they're doing very, very well. But certainly, what hampers the Latino community and the African American community generally is the fact that we do not have enough venture capitalists and investors who look like us, sound like us, and want to help us. And so if we had many more minority venture capitalists and investors who really understand our culture, understand our marketplace, who understand our targeted outreach, we would be able to do even better because what happens with venture capitalist investors is that they normally fund people that have been referred to them or that they know personally. So, for those individuals who have really made it really, really big, and you know who you are, think about setting up a venture capital fund where you can bring other people up by their bootstraps because we know how to work. We just need an opportunity, even
Yeah.
more than what the federal government is more than available to do.
We want to talk about that opportunity and access to opportunity. Talk to me a little bit about the 7A and 504 loan programs because this is an opportunity that's available for businesses to tap in and, you know, get access to capital.
Well, we'll start with the big stuff. In 7A, we can lend up to $5 million, and that is for working capital. So if you have a business and you need working capital, which means to pay off your employees, or if you're expanding your business and you need to hire more employees, we're able to do that as well for you with this 7A program. If you went into a big contract and they're not going to pay you for 3 to 6 months, but it was worth getting into that contract because it'll take you to the next level. That from 1 million to $5 million is the way for you to go, and that you apply directly to the financial institutions around the corner from you, or you can go online at sba.gov. We have something called Lender Match, where we have people who have been vetted already by us across the nation. So from Massachusetts all the way up to the west coast of California, you have access to every single borrower or lender who's willing to consider your loans. And what's good about that is that it gives you an opportunity to discuss your business with, someone that you traditionally would not have access to, but certainly may be interested. And if they make you an offer, then you can go to your own bank down the street and say, listen, the California financial institution is offering me this and this and this. What do you have to say? And so you can get some competition going and you can end up winning because then your local financial institution can lower their interest rate or can increase the amount that you want to borrow, or you can go to the guy in California for this for less amount.
Yeah. When we look at
Now, the
our
504 for me as a New Yorker, it's even a bigger thing because We know that real estate in New York, especially, is off the chain. It's very, very expensive. And the 504 is a specialized loan program up to 30 years, up to again $5.5 million. Dollars. It can be a bigger loan, but we can go up to 5.5. And it's for the acquisition of commercial property, build out, and machinery. So I always encourage my community to own a piece of the rock, because when you own your property, you are then in control of your budget. The taxes, you know how much they're going to be. Your water bill, your Con Edison, everything is on you, but you are in control. Your landlord can no longer jack up your rent, and you are no longer paying their mortgage on the building that you have improved on, that you are occupying. And so, by all means, we have always found, I would say 80% of the time, when we calculate what they're currently paying between the rent, and the triple net tax fees, which is the electricity, the water, the taxes, your portion that you're paying to the landlord, you we quickly determined that based upon a 30-year loan that we can give you, and it's a fixed loan, that you will end up paying less by owning that building than by paying the landlord.
Yeah, yeah. And not many people know that. I think you're encumbered by the burden and the weight of just trying to get your business off the ground. And there's so many things to really consider when you get your business, that this is one of the things that doesn't really always come to mind. But I'm glad we're having this conversation, because perhaps there's a business owner out there that's watching right now and saying, listen, this is something that I really need to think about. I really need to.
That's why I came on. I'm relying on you.
Yeah,
Uh,
well,
but but certainly, what I've gone on, I've met with the supermarket associations. A lot of those guys, they own supermarkets. They've improved on the supermarkets. They've done added new lighting. All of that, if they go away, the landlord ends up benefiting from. So I encourage them to buy that property. Buy the block if need be, because more than often, it's not only just a supermarket, but it's a parking lot next door. That his customers are using. So certainly it's a win-win-win when they do that.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, no, no. You listen. Love having you.
I get
You
excited.
listen. Let us know. We talk about underserved communities. Really, honestly, we can see the margins, and you can see those who are marginalized. Part of your work, I know, is really bringing that access to underserved communities to let them know about it. I can tell you, I've been in meetings and I've covered them as press conferences. I've heard so many people in the community say the real problem that we have is a lack of information and access to resources, access to capital. These are the primary arguments that you're going to hear from people in marginalized communities, and I want to hear from you. How do we do that about increasing the access to capital, and what's been done to increase the access to capital to underserved communities?
Well, I will tell you that in the last 3 years, our administrator has been key in ensuring that we create additional and facilitate new programs and old programs to lower the effort needed by lenders to lend to the community, and by the borrowers to borrow from the federal government. This is a city of immigrants and migrants, and a lot of people come in here with distrust of the federal government. Oh, it's the federal government. I'm scared. And fact of the matter is that if you're going to start a business, you should come to us first, whether you're documented or not. We cannot lend to you if you're undocumented, but we can provide you with a lot of great advice, and we can show you the way. Because what happens is that the moment you open up a small business, you're going to get people in the street that are going to come in and lend you money, but at 16%, at 25%. And when you do that, you will never own your business. When you're giving somebody else 25% of your weekly profit, and they're charging you on a weekly basis, that's a really scary deal. And if you miss a payment, and this is something that one of my friends saw in a hair salon, the owner of the business went to the front of the store. Of course, everything is glass enclosed, and she spoke to a man, and the man hit her. The woman fell to the floor, and she broke her wrist. She was a hairdresser. That means she was out for a long period of time, if not ever. So, fact of the matter is, come and see us first. We will let you know what we can do, but fact of the matter is that we have small business development centers in all 5 boroughs, quite a number of them. They will help you if you just have an idea. They will help you create a business plan. They will help you create a budget, and then they will tell you who is willing to help you with finance. We can lend from as little as $500 up to the $5.5 million that we have already discussed. So certainly there we have something for everything for everyone. Then we have another program called SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. These are Fortune 500 CEOs, chief financial officers, media people, marketing people. If you need help with QuickBooks, if you need any kind of help expanding your current business or starting a business, there's a mentor there for you, and it's all for free. We do not charge for any of these services because we've already been paid with tax dollars. And the thing is that when you're in business, you're paying taxes. And if you're about to go into a business, you're paying taxes. So fact of the matter is that when you win, we win. And so does the community. So certainly, if you're a veteran, we have special set aside programs and sole source programs for veterans because they've already paid. They almost paid with their lives. And when there is a need in the veteran with the veteran or with the veteran's family, because if you think about it, if their husband or wife, went overseas to fight in a war, that whole family paid. And so certainly there's something for veterans. There's also women's business development centers, and we also have um, other programs that can help uh, any individual who's interested, whether they have just a concept or whether they have up to 1,500 employees. That's still considered a small business if it's in certain categories. And so certainly we have something for everyone. And we will let you know where the doors are, where the financial institutions are that are really interested in your business. Some banks will finance restaurants much quicker. Some banks are really looking to do nothing but real estate. We will let you know which financial institutions you should approach, or we will help you approach those financial institutions because we know what they're looking for and we know what they're interested in. So we're there for you. Don't ever be shy. Don't ever be scared. We know how to fix problems even before they start.
And you say you're there for the people, and I want to give you an opportunity to unpack a little bit more for our viewers. SBA, because you do have a lot of field offices out there, and they're field offices that people can take care, they can take run to, and then also you've got some partnerships. And so, for those who may not be familiar with your field offices, what goes on in the field offices? What services can people get at the field offices, and then some of those partnerships.
Well, the partnerships are easier for me to talk about first because they're I've already mentioned them. The Small Business Development Center are partnerships between SBA and the educational institutions. So, right, we have a Small Business Development Center here at Lehman College. So you may know about that one. It was recently led by someone who was a very close friend of mine who was a banker at Citibank when I was a banker at Citibank. It certainly is an opportunity for those who are thinking of starting a business or have a small business and need some help with paperwork, need some help with financial projections to come in. And so certainly they're located in at Lehman College. In Manhattan, we have a much larger one at Pace College. In Queens, we have two others. And what's good about that is that we normally hire, or they normally hire individuals that represent the community. And so in the Bronx, they have a couple of individuals that speak Spanish. In the two Queens offices, they certainly have those who speak Spanish, but also speak Mandarin and Korean because there's a very large growing Asian community in uh, in Queens. And then we have standalone small business development centers that are not with educational institutions. We have one in Chinatown. Brooklyn doesn't have one right now, but certainly those SBDCs, we call them SBDCs, can be accessed through sba.gov/, small business development centers. And know that that particular website is available in about at least 12 languages. And so certainly if you can read in a more comfortably in another language, we have the wherewithal to just convert everything that we have provided in those websites, and it's reviewed rather frequently in other languages. That's number one. Number two, our field offices, mine is located at 26 Federal Plaza. It's also the Immigration Naturalization Center. So the lines are long, but certainly we are there. We have different staff in those offices on different days. But normally, what they have asked us to do, especially since the pandemic, is not necessarily be in the office, but rather be out in the community, um, meeting with chambers of commerce and meeting with other enterprises, uh, of course, supermarket owners, in order to ensure that the word is out there. But certainly, the numbers are all available out on sba.gov, and we're there to serve and we're there to answer questions. And our emails are also there. I have received emails from individuals, in, well, not only in my community, but even as far away as California, because they found my name first. I was at the top of the regional administrator list. And so certainly we are available to everyone, but certainly as a Bronxite, and as a New York City dweller, I'm first and foremost here for my New Yorkers, and know that there's a lot more that we want to do, including people who are coming back to the farming communities and in the area of technology. Fact of the matter is that there's a huge plant that's going on up in under construction in Syracuse, New York, and it's called Micron. And they're going to be hiring thousands of people. There's going to be business opportunities for people to do business with them. And I'll give you a very small backstory, actually, too. There was an immigrant who came, was sent to a school in Albany to learn English, decided to look around for opportunities, business opportunities. He didn't necessarily wanted to go back to his country, and he found that they were closing a yogurt plant in upstate New York. And they were closing it. Fact of the matter is that when he walked in, he saw the workers putting all the machinery very carefully back into boxes, and he decided to borrow $30,000 from us. It's now a multi-billion-dollar business, and it's called Chobani. And so certainly all things are possible. If you have a dollar and a dream, we'll provide you the rest. We had two college kids who both immigrants as well, parents from different countries, and we lent them $30,000 to open up a restaurant. Earlier this year, we lent them $1 million to open up a fried chicken restaurant. They're seventh in New York City, and they have revitalized the whole community in Brooklyn. And now we are in discussions on lending them an additional $1 million to buy the building where one of their restaurants is in New Jersey. So certainly, once you get in through the door of SBA, we're going to stick with you like white on rice. You do everything right, we're gonna be right there with you in order to ensure that you do well, so that our community and our nation can continue to do well. I hope I
Yeah.
answered your question.
Yeah, you did. You did. And as we're in this political season, we do have an incumbent president, Joe Biden. I should say, well, the incumbent party, Democratic Party of Biden and Harris. What do you see, particularly if things continue on a Democratic line with what we have, by way of funding? Because small businesses and let me back out and not say funding, but just let me go with small businesses itself. How do you see that playing out as with the Biden-Harris administration?
Well, there's only a Biden Harris administration until January 21st. After that, we will have another administration. And right now, we're not sure how it's going to go, but know that the White House can only ask Congress for funding and the Senate for funding. In the end, it's up to Congress and the Senate to say yay or nay. We have had a lot of issues with getting legislation passed by both houses. And so, certainly, all I can say is everybody go out and vote, please, if you haven't already. But certainly, we need more funding, definitely. and we look forward to continuing the trajectory that has been started under this administration. And we hope that whoever comes in next will see that there is a need to continue to support the historically underserved, that we need to continue to support these brand new small businesses that have been started by immigrants and migrants. Those businesses go a long, long way. I mean, here in Hunts Point, last case scenario, it's a Korean guy who came in many, many years ago, and he ended up working in a Jamaican store in Brooklyn, in a bodega of all things. And he accumulated whatever money that he could accumulate. He ended up becoming a distributor of fruits and vegetables from guess where? From Jamaica. Um, and he's since expanded his business to bring in fruits and vegetables from other countries, needless to say. But you never know who you touch. You never know who you are impressing. You never know who is dreaming their best dream because they're working for another person who's making it. And so, certainly, when that happens, our national economy continues to grow and expand because we continue to make access to capital, access to opportunities, especially financial opportunities, available to anybody who's willing to work hard for it. And so, I can't imagine that anyone would ever be against a more successful nation. And so, I, vote, participate in the process. And if you participate in the process, then whatever the outcome is, you'll know that you were responsible for it.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent words right there, Marlene. We got to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate you taking the time of being with us here today and sharing a little bit about the work that's going on with small business and, of course, the work that's going on for so many people in small businesses across America. Thank you.
Let me just add one last thing, because there's $1.8 trillion that was passed in legislation, some of it actually with both houses. And it's an opportunity for small businesses to get involved with the federal government and with the state in the area of energy, high-speed internet, infrastructure. It's $1.8 trillion, and out of that, $50 billion is available in government contracting for our businesses here. So certainly look again, sba.gov/IIA, which means Invest in America. There just may be an opportunity that you hadn't known about if you look in there. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you being with us. Marlene Cintron, thanks much.
Thank you. Delighted and honored.
All righty. Well, we come to the end of our show today. Hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Social Justice Forum. If you want to rewatch this episode, catch the recablecast right here on BronxNet.org. If you want to join the conversation, also if you want to present your point of view, you know what you do? Visit our social media at BronxNet TV. Join us next week. We continue to elevate the discussion and bring further awareness across the globe. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care. God bless.